Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining me once again here on Boxing News Today on Talk and Fight. And let's see, we got a lot to go through today. I'll try to make this as brief as possible, yet as encapsulating and as exciting as possible as well. Let's start off with a couple of fights that took place in the UK. Isaac Chamberlain won the British and Commonwealth cruiserweight titles on unanimous 12-point decision over defending champion Mikhail Lawal on Saturday night. That was held at York Hall in London. And also up the road, so to speak, in a junior welterweight contest, Jack Catterall, 28-1, won a unanimous 12-round points decision as well over 38-year-old former multiweight champ Jorge Linares, who's now 47-9, by the way. And that took place up in Liverpool at the M&S Bank Arena. So let's quickly move along then to the United States of America, where we saw, this is something we talked about on the Friday night panel with Tim Witherspoon and Lou Eisen. In a huge upset, undefeated Giovanni Gallo di Toro Santillan, 32-0, 17 knockouts, knocked out WBO number one welterweight Alexis Lex Roca, who is now 23-2 with 15 knockouts of his own. And that was in round number 6. And that took place at the Kia Forum over in Los Angeles, California. To be blunt, it was a beatdown. Bloody Roca, apparently. All right. Didn't mean to laugh at Mr. Roca. I'm sure he's a good guy. But he was quite bloodied. One of the most consistent and successful boxing series continued over the weekend with promoter Carlos Lenas and Soundboard in Motor City Casino in Detroit. Both the main and co-main events provided action for the capacity crowd. Cruiserweight Joe Jones, 14-9, shocked the venue with an upset of local favorite Vernon Weber, who was now sporting a 9-1 record. He was undefeated. So that's very good news. Perhaps Derek Miller's toughest test to date. He delivered again, facing fellow cruiserweight Leonardo Minor for a 6-round contest. Miller was up to the challenge in the first round, and both fighters made cases to judges to win the round. Moving on, Minor fought hard in the 6th, and if he fought that way during the entire fight, maybe would have earned a different outcome. Overheard from Miller's head trainer. Miller had been working 10-hour days in hard labor. This may have added to his slow output in the 6th. No matter the case, Miller won, undisputed, over Minor. And the win now puts Miller in the spotlight for a high-profile fight in the beginning of 2024. Miller is sporting a 14-0 record with 8 knockouts. And Minor, by the way, dropped to 6-3-2. Let's move along now to Philadelphia. Undefeated junior lightweights Jabril Noble and Rashan Adams lived up to the billing as Noble eked out a razor-thin split decision in front of a capacity crowd at Harrah's Casino, as I said, in Philadelphia. It's Chester, Pennsylvania. The fight was hotly contested from the outset. Noble, at 131 pounds, by the way, out of Philadelphia, won by scores of 58-55, 57-56, while Adams took a card 57-56. Noble is now 5-0. Adams, also out of Philadelphia, weighed in 130 pounds, by the way. Also on that card, we saw Tarek Green stopping Dwayne Williams, and Frankie Lynn thrilled the hometown Chester crowd by stopping Anthony Young in their welterweight bout as well. So good stuff out of Philadelphia. Well, the locale of Philadelphia, let's say. And you might be wondering, what are we looking forward to in the world of boxing? And it seems like we've got a whack of fights coming up. And there have been a lot of reports I've noticed on several newscast stations suggesting that 2023 has been a banner year for boxing. But let's see what's up and coming. As we all know, we've got Jake Paul fighting. His most valuable promotions company has Amanda Serrano fighting Danila Ramos. for the WBA, IBF, and WBO featherweight world title. That takes place October 27th down in Florida, USA. Then we fly over to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia the next day, October 28th. You're going to see Tyson Fury battle Francis Ngannou in their heavyweight, what do they call it? Whatever. Clash. Just call it a clash. But on that undercard, great undercard, by the way, David Dea versus Fabio Wardley, also heavyweight. Joseph Parker versus Canadian Simon Keane, also heavyweight. And Martin Bakoli versus Carlos Takam, also heavyweight. So a good heavyweight card taking place, as I said, October 28th over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. On that very same night, good old Eddie Hearn's got himself a fight going on as well. Oshaki Foster takes on Eduardo Hernandez for the WBC Super Featherweight World title, and that's taking place down in Mexico. Moving on to November, over in Monaco, Monte Carlo, Eddie Hearn's got another fight going on. Joe Gordino versus Edward Vasquez, IBF Super Featherweight World title. Later in the month, November 15th, we're going to fly over to Tokyo, Japan, where Taikan Boxing has a fight lined up. Takuma Inoue versus Jerwin Akanyas for the WBA Bantamweight World title. Also on that same night in Las Vegas, Bob Arum's got a fight going on. Shakur Stevenson versus Edwin De Los Santos for the WC Lightweight World title, as well as on that same card, Emmanuel Navarrete versus Robson Canchecho, a WBO Super Featherweight World title. Later in the month, over in Manchester, Frank Warren's on November 18th, by the way, got Nick Ball going up against Isaac Dogbo for a featherweight bout. November 18th, same night, down in Wolverhampton, boxer has Frank Petitjean versus Adam Azim for the European Super Lightweight title. And that same night, across the world in California, Eddie Hearn's back at it. Diego Pacheco versus Marcelo Esteban Corsaires, super middleweight fight. Gonna be a good one. The one we're looking forward to, November 25th, Dublin. Chantel Cameron versus Katie Taylor 2 for the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO Super Lightweight World title. Then on November 25th, over in Las Vegas, Al Heyman's still at it, PBC. Even on Showtime, by the way, might be one of the last ones on Showtime. David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. A great, great fight. Look forward to that one indeed. And, whoever wins that one, I think there's going to be there's going to be a lot of talk. Let's put it that way, right? There's a lot of rumor, but a lot more talk in the wake of that fight and who's going to win. That's going to be a close one. That's going to be close. Good call. WBC interim super middleweight belt, by the way. In December, over in Belfast, Michael Conlon versus Jordan Gill, featherweight battle going on. Clum Adyarko versus Troy Williamson, super welterweight fight, December 2nd. Did I mention that? On that same night, over in London, Frank Warren's got Hamza Shiraz versus Liam Williams in a middleweight clash. Same night, over in Texas, Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boys putting on Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte in the super lightweight battle. A week later, December 9th, San Francisco, Eddie Hearn's back at it. Regis Progress versus Devin Haney. We've mentioned that quite a lot because of the back and forth going on as to whether or not Devin Haney might have eliminated a loss he might have had in Mexico. December 15th, venue to be announced. Jake Paul's MVP's at it again. This time, Jake Paul will be fighting someone to be announced. And the weight to be announced as well, by the way. So Jake Paul's got a fight coming up, but he doesn't know who he's fighting. He doesn't know in what weight division. December 16th, the night after that, in Arizona, Eddie Hearn's back at it. Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards for the IBF and WBO flyweight world title. And that wraps it up because the next one after that takes place, I'll mention it. Takes place in Quebec City, Canada. Top ranks got Arthur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith. That's taking place January 13th for the WBC, IBF, and WBO light heavyweight world title. So there you go. Good stuff coming up for the rest of the year. But something I wanted to make mention of in that heavyweight division, a fight between former heavyweight boxing champions Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder could be part of a mega card with an undisputed title clash in Saudi Arabia between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. And that's according to Joshua himself. As we all know, contracts have been signed for Britain's Fury and Ukraine's Usyk to fight for their combined titles on a date yet to be scheduled. And they expect that fight to happen in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia as well. And to put on, I have mentioned this for a long time, so we don't know if this is really going to happen or not, but it's interesting that it is hitting the headlines once again. So let's see if that mega fight can be made. It'll be a good one to round out the end of the year. I just wanted to touch on the Amanda Serrano fight that Jake Paul's putting on October 27th. Again, this is all about equal pay and equal rights. This will be the first 12 3-minute round contest for female fighters since 27. On October 27th, when Amanda Serrano, the undisputed featherweight champ, meets, as I mentioned earlier, Daniela Ramos. And that fight's taking place at the Catterall, Orlando, and will air on DAZN. So good for the women. And in other women's news, a couple weeks later, November 7th, world-ranked contender Mikhail Krebs steps into the ring to continue her unbeaten streak as part of the latest installment of Lou DiBella's Broadway boxing series titled Heroes on the Hudson, a one-night-only event to support the heroic veterans of the United States Armed Forces. Krebs will meet her opponent, Isis Vargas Perez, in an 8-round super bantamweight contest at the Edison Ballroom in New York City. Krebs' co-manager and former world champ, Jamel Semper Fi Herring, will compete in the main event, by the way. The evening will kick off with 5 amateur bouts, each featuring an NYPD, New York Police Department officer or military veteran, and will conclude with 4 world-class professional bouts. A great night put on by Lou DiBella. Congratulations. All right, let's have a quick look down the road. Paddy Donovan's going to be taking on Danny Ball for the WBA Continental Belt. That's on November 25th. Can't remember if I mentioned that. Coming up on December 2nd, we're going to see Kubrat Pulev fight in Chicago. Pulev was last seen losing a close, and some would say quite controversial decision, to journeyman Derek Chisora in July of last year. But now it looks like he'll be Kubrat will be battling. Who is he going to be battling? I don't know. What? He's going to be battling Chisora again? What? No, impossible. Let me have a quick look here. Sorry, sport fans. What? Okay, it doesn't say. To be announced. Oh, nope. Andrzej Wozicki. Oh, definitely mispronouncing that name. But I don't even know who that fella is or where he's fighting out of. But you might want to Google it if you're interested. Kubrat Pulev, we haven't seen him in a while. He's got a record of 29-3. We know that. But he'll be fighting in Chicago on December 2nd. Good for him. All right, let's move on to other news. In other news, it was reported last week that Nigeria will be fighting under the World Boxing banner during these qualifiers leading up to the Olympics Paris 2024. However, someone out of Nigeria, a vice president associated with the IBA, has threatened legal action given the stance that World Boxing has taken. The Nigeria Boxing Federation has further distanced themselves from the World Boxing people, with the lawyer Vazania Omo Agego threatening legal action if they don't cease interference. It's a pretty lengthy story, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with money. But as you know, World Boxing, who are currently having some decent fights taking place in the qualifying rounds down in the Pan American Games right now. I believe they're taking place in Chile. I'm sure I've got a story upcoming about that. But they announced last week their newest members, among them the first from Africa being Nigeria, along with Finland, Iceland, Jamaica, Norway, and the Czech Republic. So more news, I'm sure, coming up about that outcome. But as I said, out of Santiago, Chile, there's some fighting going on. And the USA Boxing Camp came away with a couple of victories over the weekend. As I said, this is the Pan American Games that are going on as a prelim. qualifying for the Olympics taking place in Paris. And why I wanted to mention it is because someone who we featured on Talking Fight had on the Knuckle Up show, Amari Jones out of Orlando, came out aggressive against the Puerto Rico opponent, Angel Gabriel Perez. And Jones connected with multiple combinations, pushed the pace, and won the match. Congratulations to Amari Jones down in Santiago. All right, let's have a quick look. Oh, yes, sorry. To conclude this show, how can we not say something if we don't say something about Eddie Hearn? Indeed, and this is all about the Buatsi Dan Azeez fight that was postponed due to, put this in air quotes, an injury suffered to Dan Azeez to his back. So there have been a lot of words thrown back and forth over in the UK as this was billed as an all UK clash. And it was, but we reported it, and then we reported the injury and the postponement of the fight. And since then, Eddie Hearn's taken a bit of heat because he may or may not have inferred that Dan Azeez was backing out of the fight because he was politely asked to back out of the fight because of poor ticket sales. So this is what Eddie Hearn had to say because he does say, okay, wait, I'll read his quote. I heard Dan Azeez's comments. If he can show me an interview where I said he's faked an injury, I'd be astonished, said Eddie. What I said was 2 weeks ago that I'd heard that the show wasn't going as planned and that it was going to be pulled. Now, for what reason? Someone said ticket sales. Someone said an injury. I wouldn't at all suggest that on Tuesday someone would go up to Dan Azeez and say, do me a favor and pull an injury. So I'm sure he's injured. But yes, there was a lot of rumblings about that show. And listen, I want to see the fight because although we parted company, I'm disappointed for Joshua Buatsi because he was up here and sometimes through fault of his own because his terrible advice, but also through a bit of bad luck, he just miles off where he should be, and he's a tremendous fighter. Boxing's full of people with terrible advice. Some people listen to it, some people don't. But, you see some of these fighters that just listen to people who have absolutely no clue about boxing. I'm not even talking about the promotional company. You can't advise a fighter if you have absolutely no knowledge about the sport in and out of the ring. Boxing, as I always say to you and always say to people, concludes Eddie, there are no barriers to entry. It is the most bizarre world where someone who is seriously useless can start giving you advice about your career. And the next thing, they're in my office telling me this kid should be getting this, and we want to be going in this direction. And you're having negotiation with someone who, quite frankly, is an absolute clown in the world of boxing. And that's the bizarre thing. So there you go. That's words of advice from Eddie Hearn himself, as in, don't take advice from people who don't know anything about boxing. And I guess in this case, it had nothing to do with Dan Azeez other than he didn't say anything about Dan Azeez faking injury. But he is upset about, obviously, his former client, Buatsi, backing out of their relationship due to bad advice. All right, sports fans, thanks very much for joining me here on Talking Fight. Appreciate it. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm going to see you later on at 4 p.m. Eastern Time when I join Mike Orr for his show, Knuckle Up. Thank you.